Hey everyone, Dr. Boone here for Revive TV. Today's episode is titled, The Real Reason You Can't Deal with Stress. So welcome back. Remembering last week we started our discussion on stress and we started by talking about the physiological responses that the body takes under stress, especially chronic stress. So if you haven't seen that episode, I really recommend you go back to it. Just look at the videos that accompany this page, and that'll take you through that process. But in short, we talked about the fact that when we're in chronic stress, we have these stress hormones that come into our system and they increase certain things. So they'll increase our blood pressure, they'll increase our LDL, our so-called bad cholesterol, they'll increase our blood glucose levels, so how much blood sugar is running through our system, and also increases our fear and our anxiety levels. But it also decreases things. It decreases our immune response, decreases our reproductive organs, decreases our growth and hormones system, and then it also decreases our ability to think clearly, so our working memory, our ability to be able to produce and be as efficient as possible. So as I said, if you want to learn a bit more about that and understand it, go back to last week's episode and we can dive in there a little bit deeper. I also talked about the requirements to helping you deal with that stress. So let's recap them quickly. So the first one is movement. We know that when we move, it has a positive impact on the brain in releasing healing hormones, so dopamine and serotonin. And these oppose the stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, and they balance them out. So we know that's important. We know that the proper nutrition is important, that when we get in a stress response, our body craves instant energy. So the body will want to get things like refined carbohydrates. That's why we want to go for the chocolate when we do, or the trans fatty acids, so the deep fried foods when we feel stressed. The body's kind of craving those things. We also know that we have to have strategies to deal with the emotional stresses that we focus on. We've got Inspired Thinking coming up in March, and I encourage you to go to that to get the strategies and the other blogs that we're going to bring up in the next little piece. And then having a healthy spine and nervous system. So visiting your chiropractor regularly for your checkups. So our topic today is the real reason you can't deal with your stress. And the answer is you don't plan for it. So what do I mean you don't plan for it? Well, let's just look at any goal that you've achieved, one that's been really worthwhile in your life, something that's been super important and it's been achieved. In achieving that goal, there would have been a plan and a strategy attached to that to get there. There would have been some time frames, there would have been tasks to complete to allow us to get to that position. So in dealing with our stress, and in this case, especially our mental emotional stress, it is no different at all. Okay, so where are you planning your exercise? Because we know movement has a positive impact on the brain. Where are you planning for your exercise? Where are you planning to go and buy your nutritious food and prepare it? Where are you going? Where are you finding the time to clear your mind? And where are you finding the time to visit your chiropractor? So these are some of the things that are the requirements that we need to make, but where are you planning for them? So a mentor of mine, and I've heard this not just from him, but he said it to me just recently, and it really resonated with me. You know, sometimes you hear something, you've heard it before, but you hear it again and you go, I'm with you on that one. He said to me, if it isn't written, it isn't that important. If it's not that important, it won't get done. So let me just say that again. If you haven't written down where you're going to find the time for these things, it mustn't be that important to you. If it's not that important to you, it just won't get done. Now, I'm hoping by the time we finish with you that you will see that this is important, that it's not a knowledge gap that's stopping you from doing it. It's just not having a plan. So how do I go about doing this? Very, very simple. I just get a calendar. The one I use is Outlook. It's an online resource. There are other online resources. You can use pen and paper, no problem. I don't do it. My writing's crappy and I'll probably lose the paper there. That's history of me. So I use Outlook, the Outlook calendar. And in there, I go down and write everything I do. So when I say you need to write down everything you do or everything that I do when I put mine in, that includes where you work, where your kids' activities are, where regular appointments are, even your sleep. You want to write down everything that you do in your week and to see where the spaces are. Now, then you need to write in where you're going to find the time for the things that are critically important to dealing with stress. Where's your time for exercise? Where's your time for buying and preparing foods? Where's the time for dealing with the emotional stresses? Where's the time in the week to see your chiropractor? So we need to write these down, have them scheduled, and it will allow you to better achieve the outcome you want, which is dealing with your stress. So for example, you might say, all right, I'm going to exercise Monday, Wednesday and Friday, 6:30 to 7 a.m. I'm going to do my grocery shoppings 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. every Sunday. At 10 o'clock every night, I'm going to do an evening meditation / gratitude session. At 5:15 every Wednesday, I see my chiropractor for my checkup. And those things are put in there. So when doing that, it schedules time for the things that we need to do to deal with our stress. And also by doing that, it allows us to deal with our emotional stress better by clearing our mind of the things that we feel like we need to remember to do. You know, that all these things are in the back of our mind. Oh, that's what I've got to do. What are those tasks? What are those things I need to do? They're in the back of our mind, and they clog up the brain and stop it, and create stress, but also stop us from being as productive. So it has a twofold effect. Not only one, it actually says this is when I'm going to get these things done that are going to help me deal with my stress, and two, it clears my mind so that I can be more productive and more spontaneous when I do that. I know for me, when I'm really, really diligent, and I would do this 5 days a week. I don't necessarily do it on weekends, but we do this 5 days a week. I find that when I have gaps in my day, I'm not thinking about, oh, what was that thing I was supposed to remember? I can just look at my calendar, see what's coming up. And the other thing that I do is I write down every task that needs to be done. And then when there's gaps, I will choose a task that I could do to fill in that time. The other great benefit I've found for me personally as a parent is that when I'm doing this, when I have spare time and I'm with my children, I'm not only with my children physically, I'm with them mentally. As opposed to when I'm a bit scattered, I can be with them physically, but I'm not connected. I'm not there as much as I can. So I found that to be an added bonus to doing this regularly. So some other things that I'd like you to consider. So I've talked about the ability to clear your mind, find time with your kids. You're also a great example to anyone around you. If you're doing this consistently, people will see you being calm. They'll go, what are you doing? And be a great example to others. I do caution though, we need to be a little bit adaptive. My personality, I'm a little bit anal, and I like to keep everything structured. And initially I found it hard if something popped up, but things will pop up in our life. There'll be emergency appointments, things that just have to be done. And the last thing I want to say is you need to make this a habit. You need to practice this. This is not just something once we've done, we set and forget. It's something that needs practice. Constant vigilance is the key. So finding the time for when you are going to check your calendar. And I gave you my example earlier about doing it not first thing in the morning, but just after my morning routine was finished. So I hope that helps you. I hope that helps you in finding a way. It's a simple strategy, something you've probably considered or done in the past before, but the key is practice, practice, practice. Let's move from awareness and understanding of something into action. I'll see you next week for another episode of Revive TV.